Okay. Hello, everyone. I want to thank you all again for joining these weekly workshops that we're having here on our SWAB Facebook page. Um, I apologize for the delay. We're having some internet issues here. I got a bunch of people all connected right now, so we're going to do what we can to make sure that we don't have these internet issues very often. But again, I want to thank everyone for joining today's session. If you're new to these, or if this is your first time joining us, the purpose of these sessions is just to really provide some information that you'll find useful during this time of living under quarantine with coronavirus. So different tips that you can use when looking for a job during this time, or even just in general when everything clears up and everything's back to normal. These are some tips that hopefully you'll be able to use, learn, and it will help you ultimately find a job, or at least find or nail that interview. So if this is your first time joining us, I really want to make these sessions short. I think anywhere between 10 to maybe 20 minutes is a good time. I really want to be to the point, give out the information, and make sure that it's something you could take and run with it. So last time, or the first session that we had, we spoke about different resume tips and things you should and shouldn't include on a resume, and how you can really beef up that resume to stand out to an employer. The second session, we talked more about interview skills and things that employers are looking for when you go on an interview, whether it's in person or through an online tool like Skype or Zoom, really just ensuring that, as a candidate, you feel prepared and sort of have an understanding as to what an employer looks for during an interview and in a candidate. But I think for today's session, I want to talk about more how to stand out in a crowded job market, and how to stand out when you're looking for a job. This is something that's very common. It's a common question that we get asked quite a bit is, I feel like I've done all of the right things, but I still can't set myself apart from everybody else in the job market. And there's a ton of different things that you could be doing to make sure that you're standing apart and not really getting sort of mixed in with everybody else. So there are certain things and certain tips that you should be following, or at least looking into, in order to make sure you don't kind of stay in the pack. These are things that you can use to help make yourself stand apart and make yourself memorable to the employer. Oftentimes what I hear from students, especially recent grads out of college or university, is they've graduated, they feel like they have their degree or diploma, they think that they're ready to enter the job market, and they just start applying and never really hear from anybody, or the types of roles that they are applying to aren't really the roles that they had envisioned. They didn't envision working when they started school. And so I think that's a problem, because a lot of people might have their degree or diploma and not necessarily know how to use it properly. So I think what's really important, and I think what a lot of people should be doing, especially candidates who are looking for jobs, are reach out to people and ask for informational interviews. So I think that's the first tip that I want to talk about, is informational interviews. What an informational interview is, if you've never heard of this term or if you've never gone on one, is really when you as a job seeker reach out to somebody at an organization with a title that you ideally would want to work later on in your career. And what you can do in these sessions, or what you can do in an informational interview, is really pick the person's brain about how they got to that position, or how they even got in that organization, and really answer or ask any questions to that individual about the company, what they look for in a candidate, and sort of any sort of insightful tips or things they can share that will give you that advantage when it comes time to actually applying. So I think that's always important. And I think from speaking to a lot of people and a lot of students who are recent grads, in their mind, they almost feel like they don't want to ask people for informational interviews, just because they feel they don't want to be bothering this individual. But what I tell people often is, you have to recognize that these individuals who you're reaching out to were at one point in your shoes. they realize what you're going through. They understand the process. They understand how difficult it is. And I tell people, you'll be surprised at how many people are out there willing to offer up a half an hour of their time to go for a coffee and let you pick their brain. It's something that I think is very important, and a lot of job seekers and a lot of candidates and recent grads should be doing this, and a lot of them aren't. And it's a great way to build relationships with people in the industry that you eventually want to work in. And when it comes time, if there are opportunities available, these people remember you. They'll acknowledge the fact that you showed initiative and showed ambition by actually reaching out to them for an informational interview. And who knows, that could lead to future opportunities down the line. So I think it's very important to look for people to go for these informational interviews on and have opportunities to pick their brains. But, it's also important to build those relationships with key people in the industry that you eventually want to work in. But when I say build these relationships, what you also have to recognize is, don't be reaching out to somebody and automatically start asking them for help or start asking them for a job. Because when you do that, more often than not, you're just going to get tossed aside, or the person might not even acknowledge it, because in their mindset, they don't know who you are. They don't have that relationship with you. And they're not just going to start referring you to people or start recommending you for jobs if they don't even know who you are. So you really want to make sure you're building that relationship with these individuals, and make sure that, over time, when things feel comfortable and you've built up enough of a rapport, you can ask these people for help, and you'll see they will be willing to help you out. So just remember, informational interviews are a great way to build relationships with people in the industry you want to work in. And it could actually help you down the line when it comes to future opportunities. So just keep that in mind. Another thing that I want to talk about, and this is a resource, is LinkedIn. A lot of students aren't utilizing LinkedIn, and they should be. Even recent grads. LinkedIn's a great tool for younger people or young recent graduates to connect with individuals in their industry, and even there, pick their brain, ask if they want to go for coffee, ask them questions about their job and the company that they're working within and the industry that they're in. You'll see that a lot of people on LinkedIn will also respond to you, but I think you have to also recognize that, again, similar to informational interviews, these are people who don't know who you are. So when you reach out to them on LinkedIn, leave a personal message. Don't just send them the automated LinkedIn response or LinkedIn message that pops up when you go to invite somebody. Actually put some thought into it. Say, hi, my name is so-and-so, and I wanted to connect with you on LinkedIn. Just something personal to show that, you're not there to sell them on anything. And that, you're being genuine. You're looking for a half an hour of somebody's time. And again, these are people that have been through what you've been through, or have been through what you're currently going through. So they'll understand and well, more often than not, recognize that fact and want to have a conversation with you. It really just depends on their timing, and I think you have to be respectful of that. The third thing that I want to talk about is networking events. Now, I know this is something where a lot of students have told us that they don't feel the most comfortable going to a networking event. And that's fine. Maybe their personality is, they're a little bit more shy, more of an introvert, not really extroverted, don't want to go out there and just start speaking to groups of people all at once. And that's okay. I think, we all have different personalities, and you have to do what makes you feel comfortable. But networking events are such a great way and great opportunity for you to get out there, meet people in your industry, and build up relationships and start building those key connections that'll help you later on. And one of the great things about networking events is, regardless of what industry you want to work in, marketing, finance, law, it doesn't matter. There are always events happening that you can take advantage of. Now, obviously, right now, given what's going on with COVID-19, you're probably not going to find too many networking events. But even online events, you could probably look for, and I'm sure that they're still happening. Now, I'm guilty of it. I haven't recently checked to see if there's any networking events happening online, but if there are, certainly jump on that. Take advantage of those, because again, it's great ways to build connections, build relationships, and you can utilize these contacts that you make later on when it comes time to looking for jobs. But you also, again, like everything else we've talked about, you don't want to just jump in right away and start asking people for jobs or start asking people for help in that sense. Before you do that, you want to build those relationships, make sure that you have a rapport with this individual. And then you'll see as you build that relationship over time, they'll be more and more willing to help you out. When, if they hear of a job opportunity, they might be more willing to pass that opportunity along to you, or even share your resume with that contact who they might know. So just these are things keep in mind. Now, I want to talk to you even about interviews. A lot of people go on an interview, and this happens. It's happened to me. I've had this happen many times where I've gone for an interview, and for whatever the reason, I never got the job opportunity. And a lot of people really feel discouraged when they go for interviews, find out, a week or two later that they never got the position. And obviously that sucks, especially if it's a job that you were really hoping for, or you really put the time in and prepared for. But there are things that you can do to show that employer that you still are eager and you're still ambitious. So I always think it's important, if you go for an interview and you don't get that job, rather than leaving on a sour note or leaving a sour taste in that employer's mouth, thank them and find out what you could have done differently. Ask them questions. Find out, why didn't I get this position? Is there anything I could have done differently? Was it my interviewing skills? Was it my resume? And really just ask for that feedback, because that feedback, coming from an employer, that's going to give you insight and give you that sort of understanding as to what they're looking for and what you could have improved on. And you'll find that, it might not be the nicest thing to hear when they tell you why you might not have gotten the job, but if you listen to what they're saying and listen to their feedback and to their insight, it will help you when it comes time for the next interview. And you'll always get better as you do more and more interviews. You'll find that your confidence goes up, and that you find you're more prepared each time you go for an interview, and you're more prepared for, curveball questions that you weren't expecting. And you'll just see that the conversation flows better and you're more confident during the interview. But you always want to make sure that you're learning from the interviews that maybe didn't go so well, or you're learning from those experiences where you went for an interview and for whatever reason didn't get that job. So make sure that you're learning and finding out what you could have done differently. And, one tip that I always say is, before an interview, practice with somebody. Why not? Grab a friend, grab a family member and practice. Have them ask common questions that are found on an interview. And hopefully more times than not, they'll be honest with you and give you that feedback. So if they don't think you're doing a great job, why wouldn't a friend or family member be honest with you and give you their honest opinion? So certainly, take advantage of that and be sure to ask questions and practice, because you'll find more and more times you do that, the better off you will be at interviews. And trust me, you will certainly find that, because when I first started doing interviews, when I was a fresh grad out of university and college, my interview skills weren't the greatest. I always knew that, I had a strong resume, and I was doing everything that I could. I was going to networking events. I was meeting with people. I was asking to set up informational interviews. I was reaching out to people on LinkedIn. So everything that I could have been doing, I was doing. But the one issue that I had on my end was I wasn't a great interviewer. But I took time and asked questions and found out, what could I do differently? What can I do to improve? And over time, I found my interview skills started getting stronger and stronger. And I actually landed some positions, and it was nice, because I was able to be picky and choosy and select where I wanted to go versus, just kind of settling on a job opportunity. So you'll find the more you practice, the better you will get at it. And to my next point, I think this is the last point I want to talk about for this session, the fifth point here, is spend time looking. I hear way too often from especially recent grads out of college that, they've graduated, they spend an hour a day looking at different job boards just to see what's available. And, that's not really setting yourself up for success. You're not separating yourself from everybody else when you're doing that. If you're really only putting in the bare minimum, then you should only expect the bare minimum back. And the more time you put in and the more effort that you put in, you'll see more and more responses coming your way. So if you're just sitting for an hour on a job board, just looking for random job opportunities, it's not the best use of your time. And I always tell people that are looking for full-time jobs, especially recent grads who are looking to start their career, is looking for a full-time job can often be a full-time job. I could tell you in my case, I remember when I was a recent grad, I would literally spend every day, Monday through Friday, from 9 to 5, sitting on my computer looking for jobs. And I wasn't just applying to different jobs on different job sites or job boards. I would go on company websites, reach out to people, look if there are contacts on those sites, see if people were willing to give me a half an hour of my time, or of their time rather, and see if their companies had any opportunities available. And, it took a while, but when you get to the point where, you are looking to start your career, this isn't just any other job, right? You want to spend some time. You want to make sure that you're preparing your resume properly and you're reaching out to people that are in the industry you want to eventually end up in, because you don't want to be wasting your time either, but you certainly don't want to be wasting the employer's time as well. So just make sure you're spending a good amount of time every day doing research, seeing what jobs are available, and even if you find there's no job opportunities available, that's fine. That's just the reality of it. Sometimes you're not going to find that perfect job right away, but if you follow the steps that we talked about, like networking, going on LinkedIn, reaching out to people, having conversations, doing informational interviews, you'll find these things will help you out later on. When I started working in marketing, I landed my first job in the industry because I had networked with people that were within the company that I worked at, and just through building that rapport, through building relationships, eventually an opportunity opened up and they thought of me, and that's kind of how it all happened. So you'd be surprised how often that actually happens. But you need to be the one to initiate those conversations and start to build those relationships, because they're not going to find you, these employers. More often than not, you have to go out and find them. And if you're not building relationships with them, they're not gonna do anything for you because they don't know who you are. So just keep that in mind. I can't stress that enough. But I think for today, I think that's it. I think we're at about 17 minutes, so I want to cut the session now. But I really do hope that for those of you who are joining these sessions every Monday, that you are taking some sort of value from them. We really want to ensure that you do feel prepared when it comes time to look for a job, whether you're looking right now or whether you're thinking a little bit longer term when things start to clear up with the COVID-19. But regardless, I want to just make sure that you do feel prepared, and that there are things that you could take from these sessions, and hopefully you learn something. These are tips that I'm sharing through my own personal experiences, and tips that I've learned throughout my career, and just from building up my own resume, going to different job interviews, and even just going to different events, things like that. So I really want to make sure that we are helping as much as we can. So if you have any questions, or if there's even a session that you would like to see covering a certain topic, by all means, leave a comment on these posts. Let us know what you want to see. We're happy to do that. We're happy to help out and offer up whatever support we can during this time. So just keep that in mind. If there's something you want to see, please let us know. In our way of sort of giving back, or just letting people know that they can gain work experience through this time, is we are offering SWAB. SWAB is offering a brand ambassador program. So if you do want to gain some work experience while being at home, let us know, reach out. We have this brand ambassador program. It's a great way to add volunteer hours to your repertoire, or something that you can include on your resume that could help you out later on, and we can certainly be a resource for you. So by all means, take advantage of that. If you're looking for part-time jobs still, remember, you can always look at SWAB. SWAB is free, always will be free to download, available for both Google Play and Apple users. So keep that in mind. But yeah, other than that, I hope that this was a session that you were able to find some value in. I can't stress it enough, all of the tips that we talked about, including networking, how important they are and how they will really help you set yourself apart. We're live streaming right now. We got a phone call in the background. That's just what happens when you're doing live stream. But I want to thank you all for joining this session. And I do hope you were able to learn something from it. And we will see you next Monday. Take care, everyone.